Hello trucker family, this is Kevin with the Trucker Side. I'm back with our weekly video of the loads we book for the people we work with. I do encourage everybody to stay tuned all the way to the end. It has been an amazing week. Most of the guys we have over here in the video today have grossed over 10,000, some of them well over 10,000, so make sure you follow all the way to the end. Subscribe if you haven't already so you can see these weekly videos of the great work we're doing and the great people that are working with us. Thank you everybody for this, and let's get things going. We'll start off with Gary. Gary is hauling a flatbed. He had 5 loads this week. 5 loads with the flatbed, as we well know, is 5 pickups and deliveries. Good job, Gary. Started off the week in Hillsboro, Texas, going to Maryland Heights, Missouri, 689 miles, paying $3,600, $5.22 per mile. Wow. 9,000 pounds of building materials. Tarps were required, not a problem for Gary. Good job. Second load of the week, Granite City, Illinois to Birmingham, Alabama, 503 loaded miles, 21 empty miles, paying $2,100, averaging $4.17 per mile, 45,000 pounds of electrolytic manganese briquettes. Tarps were required again, of course not a problem for Gary. Gary tarps with his eyes closed, by the way, good job. Third load of the week, Bessemer, Alabama, going to Apple Grove, West Virginia, 571 loaded miles, 15 empty miles, paying $3,600 for the average of $6.30 per mile, 30,000 pounds of metal products. No tarps on this one. Fourth load of the week, Cheshire, Ohio, going to Millstone Township, New Jersey, 502 loaded miles, 22 empty miles, paying $3,200 for the average of $6.37 per mile, 45,000 pounds of abrasives. And then the last load of the week was the one pick 3 dropper, picking up in Sayreville, New Jersey, going to Glen Ellen, Virginia, Troy, Virginia, and Roanoke, Virginia. 496 loaded miles, 21 empty miles, paying $2,100 for the average of $4.23 per mile, 45,000 pounds of metals deck. All in all, Friday to Friday, Gary grossed $14,600. I was waiting for the day when I'm going to say this. I want to say more, by the way. $14,600 for 2,761 loaded miles, only 79 empty miles through the week, totaling 2,840 miles for the average of $5.29 on the loaded mile and $5.14 on the total mile. Impressive job, Gary Dispatch. You are doing great. Keep this going. Very nice work. Next off we have Michael. Michael is hauling a reefer, had 4 loads this week. Started off in Byhalia, Mississippi, going to Harahan, Louisiana, 388 loaded miles, paying $2,120 for the average of $5.46 per mile, 42,500 pounds of beverages. $120 out of the rate was detention. That's why it totaled up to $2,120. Then the second load of the week, 2 out of 4, Hattiesburg, Mississippi to Houston, Texas, 435 loaded miles, 121 empty miles, paying $2,500 for the average of $5.75 per mile, 40,000 pounds of halal chicken leg quarters. Temperature was set at 20 degrees continuous. Nice load. Then, hang tight for this one, we got a Baytown, Texas to Gonzales, Texas, 160 loaded miles, 26 empty miles, paying $1,500 for the average of $9.38 per mile. Very nice. 45,000 pounds of spices and extracts. And then the last load of the week, Laredo, Texas to Henrico, Virginia, 1,648 loaded miles, 227 empty miles, paying $6,000 for the average of $3.64 per mile. 43,500 pounds of food product. Load had to be protected from heat due to extreme heat in the transit as well as the destination city. Reefer has been set between 50 and 65. And for these 4 loads, Michael grossed in 7 days $12,120 for 2,631 loaded miles, 374 empty miles, totaling 3,005 miles for the average of $4.61 on the loaded miles and $4.03 on the total miles. Very good job, very impressive week, very solid work. Good job, everybody. Then we have Manuel. Manuel had 3 loads this week. He's hauling a dry van. Started off in Greenwell Springs, Louisiana, going to Phoenix, Arizona. 1,461 loaded miles, paying $3,755.27 for the average of $257 per mile. 43,000 pounds of flintstone, silica, and quartzite pebbles. Then the second load of the week, Tucson, Arizona to Indianapolis, Indiana. 1,695 loaded miles, 12 empty miles, paying $4,500 for the average of $265 per mile. 43,500 pounds of food and beverage, Pepsi products. Nice. And then the last load of the week, Cayuga, Indiana, going to Petersburg, Virginia. 742 loaded miles, 82 empty miles, paying $3,300 for the average of $445 per mile. 45,000 pounds of roll stock, 7 rolls. Friday to Friday, manual grossed $11,555.27 for 3,898 loaded miles, 94 empty miles, totaling 3,992 miles for the average of 296 on the loaded and 289 on the total. Excellent week, solid work, good job guys. Then we have Brad. Of course we have Brad hauling a step deck. Had 2 loads this week, the regular schedule, St. George, Utah to Monahans, Texas, 932 loaded miles, paying $3,450 for the average of $370 per mile, 40,000 pounds. This was a container. And then the second load, the return load, Brookstone, Texas to Hurricane, Utah, 1,185 loaded miles, 484 empty miles. I know it sounds like a lot, but when you round things up, for the total of $7,500, averaging $6.33 per mile. Doesn't sound that bad anymore. This load was 35,000 pounds. I don't have the rest of the information. Bottom point, all in all, Monday to Thursday, 4 days of work, Brad grossed $10,950 for the truck for 2,117 loaded miles, 484 empty miles, totaling 2,601 miles at 517 on the loaded miles and 421 on the total. Strong performance, great work for 4 days. Good job, everybody. Then we have Jay. Jay also had 2 loads this week, hauling a flatbed. Started off in Shiprock, New Mexico, going to Austin, Texas. 901 loaded miles, paying $3,000 for the average of $333 per mile. 45,500 pounds of beams. And then the second load, Laredo, Texas to Ely, Nevada, 1,520 loaded miles, 223 empty miles, paying $7,800 for the average of $513 per mile, 44,000 pounds of steel poles. Very solid work, 5 days, Monday to Friday, 10,800 in gross for the truck for 2,421 loaded miles, 223 empty miles, totaling 2,644 miles for the average of 446 on the loaded and 408 on the total. Very nice, great effort, Jay, great solid work. Dispatch, you guys are doing good. Keep it going. Then we have Tariq. Tariq also had 2 loads for the week. He's hauling the dry van. Started off in Lucky, Ohio, going to Milford, Utah. 1,791 loaded miles, paying $5,400 for the average of $302 per mile, 44,000 pounds of created machinery. And then the second load was a 1-pick 3-dropper, picking up in North Las Vegas, Nevada, going to Denver, Colorado, Brighton, Colorado, and Longmont, Colorado. 795 loaded miles, 221 empty miles, paying $4,300 for the average of $541 per mile, 43,000 pounds of palletized building material. Very nice. Sunday to Friday, 6 days of work, 9,700 gross for the truck for 2,586 loaded miles, 221 empty miles, totaling 2,807 miles, for the average of 375 on the loaded and 346 on the total. Very nice job. Very good job. Then the last truck of the week we have here is Shelby. Shelby ran 2 loads. Always a hard runner, always a hard worker. He's also hauling a dry van. Started off the week in Shreveport, Louisiana, going to Phoenix, Arizona. 1,248 Loaded miles paying $2,670 for the average of $214 per mile, 38,000 pounds of oil. And then the second load, Yuma, Arizona to Goldsboro, North Carolina, 2,400 loaded miles, 185 empty miles, paying $6,750 for the average of $281 per mile, 34,000 pounds of fungicides. Friday to Friday, 7 days of work, Shelby grossed $9,420 for 3,648 loaded miles, 85 empty miles, totaling 3,833 miles for the average of 258 on the loaded and 246 on the total. Well done, light loads, good money, good work, good job everybody. This was the last truck that we showed. Thank you for watching this video so far. If you have, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't, so you can see all the videos that we post with the work that we do. We're very proud of the work that we do and the people that work with us. Thank you very much. We appreciate you more than we can tell. Everybody, thanks for watching this video. Again, this is Kevin with the trucker side. Have a good day.